On Wednesday, September 17th, the Warner Center Marriott was the place to be for the 10th annual Mayor's Luncheon. More than 500 of the Valley's top business and civic leaders, as well as elected officials, enthusiastically filled the banquet hall. The United Chambers of Commerce of the San Fernando Valley proudly welcomed Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Thank you very much. Please sit down. Thank you. Let me thank Bert and Jane so much and the entire Bachman family. It is true, the way they're introduced by Richard. This valley literally would not be the same. The only part of my valley bio you missed was the time, of course, that I got a car from Galpin, Saturn. Remember when there used to be Saturns? I got one of the first electric cars. But it was amazing to see, and the friendship you've given to my family over so many years. I felt like I was living through my own funeral right there. So it's nice to hear everything that I got to do in life. And heaven looks pretty good, I got to say, with all of you here. But thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Bert. Thank you for being such a pillar. Thank you for creating the thousands of jobs that you have and even giving people the opportunity to drive home with a Mustang. This is what the Valley has always been, about being fearless, about looking at that horizon and defining the point that you want to march towards to be there. It's such a pleasure to be back here, and thank you to Richard who's organized this, and over 400 people today. What an amazing turnout we have. Let's give Richard a round of applause. 500? Sorry, over 500, we just got the numbers. But thank you to Mary and Joe's for her great work, Board Chairman Mark Levinson, and Richard for being such an amazing luncheon chairman. And my fellow public servants that are here, starting, of course, with Dick Reardon again, my predecessor and a great leader for Los Angeles. Such a pleasure to have Mayor Reardon here. Our city council members that are here, Bob Blumenfield here in the 3rd District, and Mitch Englander, my dear friend. To have, many of you have seen that I've tried to become a regional leader, to really bring together all of the people of the region that live essentially in one city, even if we have individual municipalities. So I'm so glad that Mayor David Shapiro from Calabasas is here with Fred Gaines and Lucy Martin, 2 other fellow council members. And thank you guys for your great work, and proud to be alongside you too. Matt, I know Dababne was mentioned as well. I think we hit everybody before. And Jim McDonnell, I just want to say one word about too, is going to be the best sheriff we've ever had. He is going to do super things for this county. And think about it. He's been top leader at LAPD, Long Beach, and now the entire county. We've never had that sort of a resume and such a good heart and a great mind. So I can say it from here. Vote for him. Don't take this for granted. Get out there and get your neighbors out there as well. It's so great to be back here home. And coming to the Valley is always coming home for me. Where I was born, where I grew up for the first 17 years of my life, first in Sherman Oaks and then in Encino. I spent every afternoon on Ventura Boulevard, maybe occasionally even going down Sepulveda to the batting cages or to the mini golf. Or I was looking at my first birthday party that I celebrated publicly. I think my 3rd birthday party, I was at 88's, the fire station that was there. I showed it to them a few days ago when I was there. And my values were shaped by this place. They continue to be driven by this place. And they represent both kind of a place where you were never judged by where you came from, only where you wanted to go to, but also a place that felt like the center of the universe. You could turn on the Brady Bunch and actually see the San Fernando Valley. You could watch movies, and Valley Girl was termed when I was in high school, and I might have dated a Valley Girl or two. There's things that we felt so locally here, but that were known so internationally. And for too long, I think Los Angeles took for the Valley for granted until the secession movement really, for all of us, put the Valley front and center as the real engine of this city again. And why it's such a pleasure to come back here is because the values that I learned here of what I've tried to do as your 42nd mayor. My first meeting, the first day, was with local chambers of commerce like those here in the United Chamber. Many of you were there the first day. My first press conference was out here in the Valley for Operation Neighborhood Blitz to get back to the basics and to focus on city services again, paving potholes, making sure we improve as we come out of the recession, the basic things that we do. And on my second day in office, I took the values of accountability that my parents taught me to make sure that our general managers had a sense of where they were going and opened that up to the people. And I required them all to reapply for their jobs, not as a statement of power, but as one of principle. That was my chance to say, I'm going to make sure we have a leadership team in this city that works for you. Because how can I judge them if they don't say what they're going to accomplish? And then how can you in turn judge me if we don't say what we're going to do? My first month in office, we negotiated a tough but a fair contract with the Department of Water and Power, where we said we had to bring reform and accountability. We had the opportunity, even though we had a great general manager at the time when he retired, to bring in a new general manager, Marcy Edwards, who is leading the charge, an amazing woman who is a third-generation employee of DWP, the first woman, but man or woman, the best person for the job. She shattered 7 glass ceilings on her way up to becoming the general manager and is focused on making sure we restore faith in that system. By the way, yesterday we broke the record for the most energy ever consumed by DWP customers, which broke the record that had been established the day before. So try to flex your power today if you can, because we've had some hot days. But we immediately began changing the culture throughout city government. Metrics to hold people accountable, putting them online, which you can see today at data.lacity.org, of the things that we're doing right and the things that we're doing wrong, because you need to know the bad news as well as the good news, and there's nothing to fear with sharing that information. For too long, we had kept from the people. For me, I have 3 very simple goals as your mayor. 1, to create more jobs. 2, to improve our city services. And 3, to build out the infrastructure for the next 25 years of life in this city. But our most important goal of putting the recession in the rearview mirror, we have some measurements of our early success. In this last year, even though we're in a deeper hole than the country and a deeper hole than the state, we're digging out of it more quickly than the state is, which is digging out of it more quickly than the country is. Our unemployment rate is down more than 2%. We've created more than 40,000 jobs in a year, the highest number of job creation we've seen in decades. And over 20,000 businesses started just in this first year since I've been mayor. We had a record number of visitors last year. 42.2 million people chose Los Angeles as their destination from across this country and around the world. And our crime rate is the lowest that we've had since 1949 due to the incredible work of our public safety professionals, the partnerships we've had with the business community, and the residents of Los Angeles as well. Those things are all good news. But we have a lot more to do. And I certainly wouldn't stand before you saying that our work has even begun. We have a competitive global economy, and Los Angeles' fate will be resting on how strategic and how visionary we are about the economic work that we do. How much Mitch and Bob and I can put back into the budget for basic city services depends on how much tax revenues we have. That depends on how well we're focused on key industries and on growing our economy. And we can't afford to keep relying on our sunshine as a way of selling our city. For too long, I felt that the city had been sitting on its hands with the most incredible assets, but not doing much to market it, to attract and to retain business here. That's why I'm intensely focused on 3 things to jumpstart our economy. A clear vision of 1, developing key industries in this city. 2, helping our workforce to develop skills that those businesses need and that will help people to support themselves. And 3, making City Hall more business-friendly. Here in Los Angeles, we have tremendous advantages. The highest entrepreneurship rate in the country. This morning, I hosted at City Hall our nation's Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew. And he was blown away when I told him that more than 1 out of every 200 Angelinos is an entrepreneur. No other city comes close to that. We have the hardest working people in the world. We have the most diverse cultural assets of any city on this globe, and the most innovative intellectual capital assembled in one town anywhere as well. But for too long, City Hall was a place where jobs went to die, strangled by the 3 T's of tape, time, and taxes. Red tape, time that we said, well, let me explain the rules as we know them, not as you need them. And, of course, the tax which chased people out of the city across our city lines. We've got some great lobbyists in the room today, and don't take this personally, but you shouldn't need a lobbyist to open a business in Los Angeles. We should be a business-friendly place where when somebody says, I want to invest in this city, we say, how can I help you? The key industries that we're focused on are old ones, emerging ones, and ignored ones. The old ones that have been here, like aerospace and entertainment, that for too long City Hall didn't focus on, which is why I said when I was sworn into office, I was going to bring back runaway production of entertainment jobs that we are exporting to other states, and tomorrow I will join with the governor in San Francisco and then down here at the Chinese Theater where we will sign into law $330 million a year for the next 5 years to bring entertainment jobs back here to the Valley and back here to Los Angeles. This isn't just important. I told the governor, who we love him because he's cheap, right? He's balanced this budget, and he's a tough sell. But I said, you know, New York isn't trying to attract a glamour industry. They're smart there. They keep doing this year after year after year, and we feel it. Our families, our main streets, our caterers, our dry cleaners, our props houses, they feel the impact of that. It's time for us to do it. and joined by two great council members from right here in the San Fernando Valley, Mike Gatto and Raul Bocanegra, together with Kevin DeLeon, our incoming president pro tem, push that through. And we will see next year alone more than 10,000 entertainment jobs return, and we will see that $1.6 billion of subsidies come back many more times and produce more than $8 billion of production here in the next 5 years. Second, another key existing industry was aerospace. Very important to the growth of the Valley and to the region. But for so long after the Cold War, people said, well, I guess we're not doing that anymore. And even though aerospace was cut by more than half, it was still one of the most important top 3 industries in the Southland, but nobody at City Hall had focused on it. So I convened, led by somebody, Brad Beck, who has a company right here in the Valley in aerospace, an aerospace roundtable and now task force that went after us applying the federal government to make sure that we could become a manufacturing community, a federal designation to get $1.3 billion in grants to retrain the workforce and to make sure that our manufacturing facilities had the latest technologies. And even though less than 5% of the cities that applied were picked, Los Angeles, and I joined together, I brought Ventura County, Orange County, and Los Angeles together with San Diego, we won. Which will mean that here we are going to keep our eye focused on those industries that are the middle-class jobs that for too long we've ignored. Brad was telling me about his company, which is based in North Hollywood. He said after the earthquakes happened in Japan, and Japanese aerospace companies couldn't make the airplane parts that he makes, he picked up some business, and he figured, well, you know what? After they get back on their feet, I'll lose that. Well, his Japanese clients, even after the Japanese companies they had used reopened again, said, we're staying with the American product because it's better and it's cheaper. Don't ever let people tell you that we can't compete globally in manufacturing. We can, and we're going to do it right here in the San Fernando Valley. Those are existing industries. But part of the vision is also looking at the emergent industries that are coming. Digital technology is a great example. Right now, we're having a new digital technology company starting up every 48 hours. The so-called Silicon Beach isn't just by the beach. It's here in the Valley. It's at downtown. It's in places like Culver City. We are seeing the collision of technology and content coming to the place where content has always been king, where we have the best storytellers and story makers, which is why companies like Google and Yahoo that are existing are investing more and more in LA. It's why new companies like Riot Games, which wasn't in the city of LA, my business team helped bring to Los Angeles, a company that didn't exist 5 years ago, a video gaming company that's online, a USC grad, created a company that now has 1,500 employees, soon to be 3,000 in just a few years. We moved them into the city of LA based on the tax work that Mitch and I had done to lower our gross receipts tax for multimedia companies, and because we said, we want you here. We're seeing Snapchat and others, billions of dollars of valuation, land in Los Angeles, and we've been supporting that by having a tech convention at City Hall where over 1,000 people came, by making sure that we put programming into our schools through STEM education, and by making sure that we're building out a tech infrastructure. But it's not just digital technology, too. It's also green technology. Recently, and I wanted to talk about CSUN's work in this as well, we've been able to make sure that we will be the green jobs capital of this country. And we have collaborated with Cal State Northridge over the last few years for the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, a great example of what government can do to create jobs and to incentivize investment. It receives city seed funding, and it's chaired by my deputy mayor for economic development, Kelly Bernard. And CSUN has committed to 3 years of funding to help the incubator get established and to become self-sustaining, to help innovative entrepreneurs here in the Valley succeed. Already, it's working with 2 Valley companies, Pick My Solar and Project PALS, and they're in discussion with 4 more with the goal of making them a vital part of the Valley's economic engine. So we have the existing industries like entertainment and aerospace, the emergent ones like green and digital technologies, plus we also are focused on those industries that people have never paid any attention to that are right under our nose, like healthcare and the financial services industry. We're home to these dynamic new banks, to investment houses that own companies throughout the world and manage some of the biggest portfolios anywhere, like the Capital Group downtown, which has over $1 trillion in assets. Healthcare, we've got a Fortune 500 company right here in the Valley in Woodland Hills in CD3 with HealthNet, which just expanded its workforce by nearly 1,000 people with the healthcare reforms that went online. It is time for City Hall to champion those forgotten industries alongside with the new and the old ones as well. But we're not just looking to economic development in key industries as our strategy moving forward. Secondly, we want to make sure that we have a City Hall that works for you. That is the most critical thing that we can do. And I'll give you some examples of the work that we're doing to already change the culture at City Hall to make sure that people can come to City Hall and feel like that we're on their side again. I ordered a streamlined, sensible system for simultaneous processing of land use. Don't take my word for it. Yesterday, I was meeting with somebody who's in charge of a large company here. They said, we're finally getting into real estate because the process is beginning to work in Los Angeles. He said, where it used to take us a year and a half to go from development of an apartment building to breaking ground, we just did it in 6 months. Downtown, we had $1 billion come to us just north of the Staples Center, where a Chinese company wanted to invest in a mixed-use property right by Dick Reardon's restaurant. And I think it was because of the restaurant that's there they decided to come. You serve mostly Chinese food, right? Right. And they brought $1 billion. We told them how big the buildings could be, but while they're finalizing the plans, they're digging the dirt, because we lined up our planning department and the two aspects of the building and safety department where we give the permits and then the construction papers at the same time. So in other words, they can show us the final plans for how the sinks are going to look as they're already building, saving time, saving money, and making sure that that investment comes back. But it's not just for the big guys. If you're working on your home now, since I became mayor, we have Saturdays that we will have our building inspectors visit you at your house. Say you're remodeling your kitchen or you're remodeling your bathroom. We used to tell you to take a day off of work and get home and wait. It was like, ordering the cable salesperson to come there, cable repair person to come. Now what we have instead is somebody who, with no overtime paid, will be there on Saturday when you're off work, because City Hall should work for you. We're streamlining the solar installation process so that you don't have to drive from Northridge all the way to City Hall to get the permits. You can do it online. By the end of the year, 95% of all the solar residential projects that you want to do, you can get those permits online. We have to start doing those seemingly radical things that make sense for everybody. You've heard the term reinventing government before. It was in the vogue in the 90s. It was termed by a guy named Bob Stone, who happens to be an LA resident. He worked in the Clinton administration under Al Gore, reinventing government in the federal level. Well, when I became mayor, I asked him to come work for me, and I offered him a juicy salary of $1 a year. And he's doing such an extraordinary job, I think I'm going to double it this year. And he is working full-time, going in with the city to look at the systems that are backwards, that are outdated and outmoded. I met with him last week, and he told me, when I started in the federal government in the 1990s, remember those were the days of the $500 toilet seats and corruption in procurement. He said, Los Angeles City today is worse than the federal government was in the 90s when I started. So we've got our work cut out. But I'm looking for the dynamic leaders inside city government, from the general manager level all the way down to the new employee, to now be judged not on how well they enforce a bunch of rules that they inherited from a thick rule book, but how quickly they get the job done for you. That's why our 311 wait times are down 83% in a year, because it matters. That's why we'll bring our DWP wait times down about 2 months, because it took us about 6 months to hire folks. So you won't be waiting 40 minutes, an hour. We will get that down to under 10 minutes by the end of this year. We will make sure that we are working for you. And I pick up the phone and call those city employees who are the innovators. For those of you who were at my first State of the City address, I told the story of one guy in our Rec and Parks department who was frustrated that on days like this, the air condition ran in our gyms even when people weren't playing. So he asked permission to install something to shut the air conditioner off, and he was told by his superiors, no, it takes too long, forget about it, just let the air conditioner run. So on his own time and on his own dime, he went to the hardware store, bought a timer and a button that people can press when they leave, and if they forget to do that, the timer shuts off the air conditioning. And it was such a success, everybody said, well, why didn't we do that before? We're installing that in every single gym in the city. It will save us $500,000, we think, the very first year. I picked up the phone, I said thank you, and I wanted his peers to hear that, because that's the innovation that I know our workforce is capable of. It's the accountability I want to see from the top from my general managers, and when it comes time for businesses to come to City Hall, that's how I want you to be greeted, with people who are constantly innovating and making it better for you. We today also make sure that we are doing things that are just the beginning of how a City Hall can work for you. We've launched an integrated fire and building plan check process, which will save time for and money for 1,000 projects this year alone. In the coming months, we'll be rolling out more Angelinos and getting rid of stupid laws that shouldn't have been there. One example was, why all our skyscrapers are flat-topped. because we thought that we had to land helicopters in fires, which is a reasonable thing, but no fire has ever had a helicopter land and evacuate anybody. It's kind of tough to land a helicopter, but we've never been able to have spires on our skyscrapers. So we got together and people said this will take years. In a month from now, you'll be able to build buildings in this city that actually have spires, that are safe for the people that are in them. And that's just one of 1,000 rules we need to get changed. Why am I spending time on this? None of these things I expect, and we've got great members of the press, will be the screaming headlines tomorrow. But they are as critically important as any of the headlines that you read. Because if we can't do those little things and those meaningful things, what will we do with the big challenges of infrastructure development, of making sure that we build for the next 25 years as well? One last aspect of making City Hall a business-friendly place is our business tax. And I'm very proud that in this budget, City Council and I worked together, and as a down payment on business tax reform, we had planned that we'll reduce our business tax at the top tier by 10% over the next 4 years. But it's only a down payment. And as I said last year when I was before you, my goal, as I said when I was sworn in, my goal, I know it's shared by members of the City Council, Mitch has been a great champion, I know Bob is as frustrated by it as too, is to get rid of our gross receipts tax, to get rid of it altogether. We have to make sure that we have, and I know there are some skeptics about this, even some who I respect who serve alongside me at City Hall. But last night, I talked to somebody who said, oh, I represent a company with 2,000 employees in this city. As soon as their lease is up, they're leaving downtown. I said, why? Didn't want to prompt them. They said, the gross receipts tax. Another company we're negotiating to bring 800 jobs into city of LA. They said, we will only come if you can somehow, and we can waive it for the first 3 years, you can waive for a longer period of time, and hopefully you'll get through by then the abolition of this gross receipts tax. You tax us whether we make money or not. It's the most anti-business, anti-economic tax that we can have. And so look to the council for us together this spring to put something forward. Hopefully we can even put on the ballot maybe by one of the elections in 2015 to get rid of that city business tax and to cut the, and one last thing, if it gets replaced by something else, it better be a reduction of taxes for people, because a replacement that drives taxes up for any business is a non-starter for this mayor, and I know for the council leaders that are looking at this as well. One last thing I want to talk about, which has been in the news as well, that's very important, that I want to address too, because I said I wanted to make sure we focused on key industries, that we made City Hall more business-friendly, and that we built the skills that can succeed for tomorrow. We need to make sure that we have a workforce that has the skills to succeed, to get good jobs, and the wages to sustain our economy as well. We focused for the first time on rebidding our workforce development program. These are the job training dollars we get from the federal government, that many times we're giving more jobs to folks in the worker centers than from the worker centers. We wanted to make sure that they're focused on those key industries and built on some of the momentum of things like we saw when I stood up and preserved the job training program we had with LAUSD, adult education program at the Van Nuys Airport, where airline and airplane mechanics were being trained, but for a $70,000 cut from state education funding at a time when airline companies were hiring mechanics starting at $25 to $30 an hour, going up to about $100,000 a year without a college education in 2 or 3 years, we were going to get rid of that program. Well, luckily, we're the landlord at Van Nuys, and we were able to get permission from the FAA to give them that rent for free, which covered the lost money they had, and that program's there right now. But we have to do this in healthcare. We have to do this in the entertainment industry. We have to do this in technology. We have to teach young people how they can be part of that seamless pipeline to good jobs, which is why this past summer I focused on skills by doubling the number of youth jobs we had in the city. When I inherited the program, there was only 5,000 youth who were able to work in the summer jobs program. This past year it was 10,000. And we coupled that with something called the Summer of Learning, which took institutions from around this city, from LAUSD and some of our colleges, from some of the great people who are working in the private sector, and we teach young people now to earn what we call digital badges. Just like Scouts earn merit badges, these are badges we put into a digital resume. Over 50,000 of them were given out this summer. Again, didn't grab headlines, but it should have, because this is going to be a sea change in Los Angeles, that they can take back to their teachers, that they can take to their college and to their job applications in the future saying, I know basic computer programming. In South LA, I was at Dorsey High School, where the students there programmed 40 different apps for smartphones here in Los Angeles, and were honored at the White House by the president for the work that they did. We have the smartest young people in the world here with the best assets, but it's time for us to start investing in them. But we also have to invest in our adult workers as well. And right now, while we see good things happening at the top, our recovery has been lagging because, quite frankly, it's still lagging at the bottom. There's not enough spending power at the lower end, and poverty is incredibly expensive for business, which is why I know none of us want to see a Los Angeles in which people who are working full-time can't get by. And that's, just to put it in perspective, if we took the people who live in poverty today in this city, and they constituted their own city, it would be one of the top 10 cities in America. Those who live in the county, it would be the third largest city in America. 27% of the people live in poverty. We are now the least affordable city in the country for housing, which means that for those that are living in poverty, almost all of them pay more than 50% of their salary just to make the rent. That is not the Los Angeles that I grew up in. That is not the Los Angeles I think that we believe in. And these numbers just don't add up for too many Angelinos. From a selfish perspective, that means that we in government have to subsidize in all sorts of things, emergency room visits, food stamps, as people still work full-time. So that's why I'm proposing to gradually and responsibly raise the minimum wage in this city, to make sure that here in Los Angeles, thank you. I know that some of you may disagree, and that's why we're going to have the discussion. But to do it in a responsible way, some people saying I should go more quickly, and you can do damage if you do it too quickly, and some saying don't do anything at all. But in between that is a responsible, grounded in economics, grounded in the evidence of places that have done this way to move our city forward and to jumpstart Main Street by making sure people can spend money right in their neighborhoods, go out to a meal, go to a movie, do those things that right now we don't face in the city. We've had support from dozens of businesses across the valley and the city, leaders like Eli Broad, the only man to have started 2 Fortune 500 companies, Rick Caruso, Westfield, which is doing tremendous work here in the West Valley, people who are actually in retail and in restaurants, and those key industries because they know we have to do better for the people that are working full-time. It used to be that minimum wage was just something that teenagers had. 92% of the people who are in the minimum wage are not under 25 anymore. People are living off of this salary or trying to. And so we need to make sure that we can jumpstart this economy and the buying power by moving forward. This proposal has been carefully crafted. It's been looked at by economists. It was just endorsed by the Los Angeles Times. And for those who fear job loss, over 600 economists from across the spectrum in the field of economics and 7 Nobel Prize winners said there's no, if you do it right, and we know that we have done this one right, there is no job loss. It does mean there will be some small increases. For instance, restaurant prices go up 2% a year on average anyways, and they will probably go up about 4 or 5%. But what you get back is $6 billion into the economy to jumpstart the quality of life and the economic activity in Los Angeles. And so we will be moving on this plan in the fall and welcome an ongoing conversation about how to make sure we do it the right way. For those of you who don't support this right now, I hope you'll share your views with us as we continue the conversation. For those of you who do, please go to Raise the Wage LA, or any of you, go to it and read the report. I got to say, we had skeptics when I went to the Los Angeles Times, and the economists who actually looked at this, who helped craft this and whose report analyzed Los Angeles, I think settled a lot of the questions that they had. Because in the counties where we've done this, even right next door to cities that haven't, there's been such a stimulus effect that everywhere this has been done, there is a net gain of jobs. Over the past year, we have seen tremendous things happen in Los Angeles. We've seen a huge ship that was headed in the wrong direction turn its way and point itself to where we want to go for prosperity. A place in which people can work full-time and earn a decent wage. A place in which a city believes that we will train you for the skills of the jobs of tomorrow. A place in which when you arrive at City Hall, we don't say, "What are you doing here?" We say, "What can we do to help?" A place in which we know that there are key industries that will be the key to our growth, especially in a global economy, which is why in a first trade mission that I took down to Mexico, we were fighting for Valley companies like NBC Universal, doors that I can open up with somebody like the president of Mexico when they were going to deregulate the telecoms industry there. It was going to hurt, the way they were going to do it was going to hurt jobs right here in the Valley. And we were able to change that and make that change. Steve Nissen was on that trip with me. Whether it's the regional approach that I took for Parsons, which is based in Pasadena, not even in my city, who just won last week a contract to rebuild the entire airport in Mexico City. And people said, "Well, why are you fighting for Pasadena?" I said, "Because we're one city, and certainly some of my residents work there, and there's residents of Pasadena that work in my city." whether it's Panda Restaurant Group, which is taking orange chicken to the world, thankfully, which is opening 250 new restaurants in Mexico. And again, I could open that door with the president to say we want to do that because guess what? The food is actually manufactured here in LA and exported to Mexico. We're able to see that for Rosemead, another company right here. So that's why it is so important that Calabasas is here, why we're working with San Fernando and Glendale and Burbank, why we need to move together as a city and as a region. And we need to compete globally to make sure whether it's the $7.3 billion we're putting into our flagship airport at LAX, $1 million a day into our port, the over $30 billion we're doing for public transit, which will include an East Valley line that'll come down the center of the San Fernando Valley, or whether it's the can-do spirit that we brought to everything from making sure we cut that red tape at City Hall, or the way we got the 405 opened 6 months earlier, because we actually put somebody to oversee day-to-day the management of what had up to that point been an unmanaged project. We will show folks that LA's best days are ahead of us. I was watching a re-election video that someone sent me from YouTube from Tom Bradley's 1985 or 89 re-election. And it had 4 points in it. He was standing in front of downtown. He said, people thought we couldn't rebuild downtown, and we did. And LAX now has the finest international terminal in the world. And our port used to be a backwater, but now it's the tops on the West Coast. And people said I was crazy to go after the Olympics, but we did it without a public dollar, and it was the most successful Olympics ever. And it was a very powerful thing to watch. I was sitting in the mayor's residence where my wife and my daughter and I moved into. Could kind of feel the walls of history breathing. I realized that none of us who are given the responsibility of being the stewards of this great public office, none of us do things that are brand new. I'm just repeating the history. We're going after the Olympics. We're one of the 4 final cities. We're helping not just downtown, but our areas like here in the West Valley rebuild themselves. Our airport isn't not just opened the best international terminal again in North America, but yesterday we broke ground on Terminal 1, $500 million for Southwest, and we're going to do 4 more terminals and bring rail there finally after 40 years. That the port is a place that we are continuing to see double-digit growth, and this year has been great for the port again. These are the things that define a great city. And each one of us know that we are standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. Our parents or grandparents who moved here to the valley. Maybe it was us who picked up, who started with very little, who believed in building a small car dealership into something that is the biggest in the country, who thought that maybe they could start a business and get the joy not only of succeeding in that, but hiring people to come along with them, but who expect government to lend a hand when they need it to and to get out of the way when they don't want us to be there. We can do that, my friends. Los Angeles' best days are still ahead of us, and this united chamber represents a united city that can agree to disagree on some things, but figure out a way to build a coalition, to raise our wages, to get rid of a city gross receipts tax, to focus on the things that are important, to make sure that we drive down unemployment and drive up investment, that we bring visitors from around the world, and that we make this a Mecca once again, as it was when I grew up here. So thank you all so much for this opportunity, and here's to our years ahead. Thank you.